RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained on this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice. An appearance on this show is not necessarily to be considered an endorsement, and as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of Occam's Razor. As always, I'm your host, RP. Joining me live in the studio, my co-host, M3, and my dedicated group of mods in the chat keeping everything comfy. What's up, you guys? So glad y'all could join us today. If you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, please consider liking and sharing. It really helps us break through the algorithm. Major suppression on this platform as of late. They are cracking down harder. It's becoming more difficult. Patriotic citizen in Portland, I hope you're safe up there. Yeah, ARIS4 noobs. That sounds like a familiar story. No notifications going out. No notification on my homepage like it's supposed to. But you guys can always bet 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays and Thursdays we are here. Red Pill News, Monday through Thursday between 5 and 6, and live streams at 10 p.m. Friday, 9 p.m. Saturday, 7 p.m. Sunday for Comfy Sunday. Do me a favor, guys, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a very brief word from our sponsor. Hey guys, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing in America these days. You can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and general mayhem in too many cities, and now it's creeping into the suburbs. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come. This isn't stopping anytime soon. The political animosity in our country is unlike anything we've ever seen in our lifetime. It's escalating rapidly, and the crescendo could be very painful. Therefore, this will certainly be the greatest survival challenge we've ever faced. Don't feel bad if it seems that you're almost powerless to stop it. We're all in the same boat, and a lot of people feel that way. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority number one in times like this is to make sure you have enough food to eat. If and when the system falls apart, you're going to need it. And I'm not trying to scare you, I just want to prepare you. You see, those who know what's coming are using today to protect themselves and their loved ones from the uncertain future we all face. I know you're not willing to be a victim, but these days, anything can go wrong at any time. And that's why self-reliance and emergency preparedness are vital requirements, no matter who you are. If you know me, you know I fully endorse my Patriot supply. They are the only source I personally use and trust to get through the tough times ahead, and you should too. Right now, you can save $100 on a full 4-week supply of delicious, nutritious meals your whole family will love. My Patriot supply makes it easy to be prepared at all times, and saving $100 off a full 4-week supply of food is just too good a deal to pass up. The future is so uncertain. I urge you to go to preparewithredpill78.com and get ready now. Once again, that's preparewithredpill78.com. Do it now. Tomorrow might be too late. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Methods, how are you this fine September afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good. A lot better than I did when I first woke up this morning.
Yeah, you had some troubles there with the powers that be. What happened?
Right. Yeah. YouTube had me locked out, or had me signed out of my account. So I was like, all right, well, I don't know why. That's weird. Let me sign in. And I went to sign in, and they said that there was suspicious activity, which I haven't changed anything. And when I followed, long story short, when I followed all the things that you're supposed to do to verify that you are really you, it would just come back and say, well, we still can't prove it's you. and would lock me out and then lock me out of the email, all that stuff. But luckily I had another browser that was signed in still. So I was able to go change everything and then clear out cookies and stuff. So yeah, if I didn't have that in the other browser, then I would be locked out of my account until I reach out to Google and they just do nothing about it.
Trying to reach a person at Google is, like trying to swim in a lake with concrete shoes on. There's nothing you can do to make it happen. One of the most frustrating things that I've ever experienced. Now, back before they kicked me out of the partner program, you used to have this chat feature if you had like a certain amount of subscribers and you were in the partner program, and you could ask questions, and they swore that they were real people, but I swear that it was some type of an automated AI, because the responses were canned. It just didn't feel like you're talking to a human. And anytime you had an issue, like, you would never get it resolved. All they would do would be to suggest that you read like one of their help articles, which are always hopelessly vague. Don't give you the information that you need. Like right now, one of the thing they're doing to me, if I go to other people's channels and I try to send a super chat, it fails every single time. And on probably 8 out of the 10 channels that I watch on a regular basis, when I chat, nobody can see me. So, like, I'm just, chatting away, and I'm, like, tagging people. I'm tagging the person whose stream it is, and nobody ever sees that I'm there, and it's very, very frustrating. But what I can do is send a super sticker. I figured this out a couple weeks ago on Whitehat's channel, because I was, like, trying to do everything that I could, and that finally worked. But so I think the answer, obviously, is that they don't want to see me chatting on other people's channels. They don't want to take a chance on what it is I might have to say. They're hitting it hard, man. They're hitting it hard. And I can tell big time in like the last 2 weeks that far fewer notifications are going out. I did this video last week on Norm Eisen. He is essentially the architect of the Purple Revolution that we're in the midst of right now. And I had so many people sending me other people's videos saying, you need to do a show about Norm Eisen. And I was like, as far as I know, I was one of the first to do one specifically on him. So here it is. Go ahead and check it out. And, it's a little demoralizing. But the point of it is that's what they want, man. They want us to be scared. They want us to have some level of anxiety all the time, so that we never know when the next shoe is going to drop. And, maybe, hopefully for them, we're just going to give up and we're going to stop doing what we're doing. Think about it. How many people that, just your average everyday YouTube consumer, if they were put through the series of steps that you were put through, how many do you think would have gotten in? And how many do you think would have, probably just thrown their hands up in disgust?
I totally agree, and I'm really glad I got into the my account. But if I would have been locked out entirely, I would just use other options. And we're definitely keeping an eye on things like Gab and the video, because they're going to be doing the video platform and stuff. And I believe that Torba over there will allow us to say whatever we really want to say and not be that worried about it. But yeah, I mean, they're coming after us in all directions. We knew this coming up with the election, so it's all expected.
It is. All right, so guys, the first thing I want to talk about today is something personal to me. You guys know my friend, a friend of the channel, J.R. Majewski. So he's the Trump lawn flag guy. He and I are doing a public event. It is a MAGA meetup. It's going to be on the 29th. There is supposed to be on that date the very first debate between President Trump and Sleepy Joe Biden. Whether or not it happens, we have already reserved a bunch of equipment, like a giant projector screen and a stage, and we're getting food and stuff for everybody to do, and I'm going to be there, and we're going to be streaming the live stream of the debate, and we're going to be doing like a pre-show beforehand and afterwards. It's in Port Clinton, Ohio. Now, JR set up a GoFundMe to raise money to help pay for the supplies and the equipment and stuff. It's a completely free event. Whether or not you guys want to donate, whether or not you can afford to pitch in, it doesn't matter. Anybody who lives anywhere near Port Clinton, Ohio, and can afford to come for a couple hours and hang out with us that night, I'm hoping that you guys will. So I'm going to drop the link to the tweet about the event from JR into the chat box here, and I'm hoping that you guys can join us. And of course it didn't post. Okay, yeah, really hoping you guys can join us. We are almost at the goal. The goal for fundraising to pay for everything is $2,800, and we're at $1,735. So, like I said, whether or not you guys can even donate, I still want you to show up, because we're going to have everything taken care of regardless. It'll all be paid for. It's already been reserved. This is going to be my first live event appearance type thing, and if you can help me make it a success, then that would be great. And I would love to meet people. I would love to have my viewers actually come and be on the live stream with me. If you guys are interested in doing that, I think it would be a lot of fun. So please consider doing that, and I hope to see you guys on the 29th. Now, the actual address has not been published yet, because JR doesn't want people showing up to his house before the event. So if you go to the GoFundMe and you donate through the GoFundMe, you'll actually get the address ahead of time. But then we're going to be publishing the actual location physically on a map, I believe 24 hours ahead of time. But just know it's in Port Clinton, Ohio. I guess that is in a very beautiful area. So yeah, come hang out with us. It'll be good. All right. So the first thing we wanted to talk about today, methods, you sent me this last night. This was something that I was actually pretty shocked by. So Newt Gingrich was appearing on a panel on Fox News, and they were discussing all of the unrest taking place across the country. You call a spade, okay? When you're talking about what is happening here, I'm just absolutely astounded every time somebody in the fake mainstream media tries to downplay the actual nature of this stuff. I mean, these are clearly organized events, okay? We just had that information released from the DHS proving, their suspicions that this is an organized event. So, somebody's paying for that food. Somebody's paying to bus and drive all those people around. Somebody's paying for all of those shields, okay? And we know that George Soros has invested millions and millions of dollars into stuff exactly like this, designed to fight against President Trump. And he's been involved in financing color revolutions in Eastern Europe in the past. So Newt Gingrich brings up his name, and it wasn't even specifically in regard to paying for the riots, right? It was in regard to his financing of campaigns for city attorneys, correct?
Yes, and we've had, and God bless OAN, because they cover this a lot over there. Anytime that a DA makes a decision or something, they're like, well, they got funded to get those positions and stuff of power. They all get kind of bought out, and then that's how you see this turnaround of these anti-fascists and stuff, the rioters, the revolving door of the arrest happening, and then they just get out and do the same thing the next night. There's money behind that. And so Newt Gingrich brings this up on Fox News. And are you going to play the clip?
I will, yeah. I wanted you to go ahead and set it up.
Right.
And then,
well, yeah. But just watch the reactions on their faces when he says this and how awkward things get. I know a lot of y'all have seen this.
Yeah.
But it's good context, because imagine having this said on a news channel that doesn't want this to be said at all, and how they would react in real time.
And I'll got more to say about it after we watch it, but here we go.
Pro-criminal and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros's money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing, because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right, we're going to.
Oh, God, so cringe. So cringe.
Okay,
and it just...
move on.
I thought they were done. I thought they were done because they were just sitting there frozen. But it continues to just sit there. It looked to me like they actually cut the feed and they had to go to a still frame because they were probably like, Newt, get off the air. You can't talk about George Soros. But we can follow the money, folks. We can follow the money, and we already know that in places like St. Louis, for example, we know that in places like Chicago, yes, it is in fact a fact. You can look at the FEC filings and you can see who put a ton of money into these lawless city attorneys, and it was in fact George Soros.
Yeah, I want the audio and the earpieces of what was being said as soon as I would love to hear what was being yelled in their ears, because it was one of those things. They all went quiet for the most part.
Yeah.
And you know that they were listening in on what they were being told on how to handle it. So I would be surprised if Nuke gets invited back on anytime soon after doing that.
I think you're right. I think he's probably going to get banned, because anytime somebody brings up a subject like that on Fox, it goes a long way. I mean, these people end up just kind of disappearing down the memory hole. Maybe they'll pick him up at OWN, okay? Maybe he'll start being a pundit there. But the way that these two ladies reacted to him saying George Soros, I'm sure you're right. Somebody in their earpieces were like, negative, don't say anything, stop. But I'm sure that they've probably been briefed on that privately or in like the Fox staff meetings. Somebody must have made the decision that we're not going to talk about George Soros no matter how legitimate the point is.
Yeah, and Paul Ryan dropped his soy latte like immediately. But yeah, when you see stuff like that happen, you have to think about, okay, why are they trying to cover it? Now, I know we have a very bright audience who pays attention to the same stuff we do. We get it, but how involved is Soros in all this stuff if they're that worried to where they have to cut it off and go quiet? And we all kind of can answer that question because of what he even said back in January at, what was it, Davos? Or Davos, however you say it, and he was talking about how it was a long time to the election and there's plenty of time for a revolution to happen.
Yes.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing. And then think about everything that happened since then, man. We are living out what he was saying then.
Very true.
But yeah, I do believe that we're going to have to see, obviously, action go towards Soros and get him taken care of. I believe he's going to be, labeled in such a way that he can be, I don't know. I think one day we're going to just wake up and it's going to be kind of a Soleimani al-Baghdadi type of situation with him. I really believe so because he's causing a lot of problems.
Well, I don't know if it'll go that far. I mean, he's an American citizen, isn't he? I mean, I understand where you're going with this. I mean, clearly there is a level of insurgent warfare that's being financed here on American shores, and George Soros undoubtedly has a lot to do with it. But I guess I feel like he's probably in some European country, so that would mean that we would have to, take out a villa in France or something like that. Right. It would get a little messy, I think, a diplomatic issue there.
Yeah, call it wishful thinking. Maybe I'm just trying to speak it into existence.
I'll go for it.
Right.
All right. So now what's also really cool is that some information about the prosecution of the, the political figures behind all of this unrest that we're seeing has finally come out. Now, DOJ spokeswoman Carrie Kopek, she has confirmed that at some point the DOJ was pursuing bringing civil rights charges, either criminally or civilly, against Portland city officials, and these discussions apparently took place long before last week when AG Barr had a conversation with the U.S. attorney. Now, in that conversation, AG Barr encouraged the U.S. attorneys to bring federal charges against violent demonstrators. Now, so what they would be doing would be going after the leaders of Portland, the leaders of Seattle, and seeing what kind of criminal durges could be brought against them. I mean, I think that as an outsider, it seems pretty obvious. I mean, like Seattle in particular, Jenny Durkin, she allowed this violent anarchist group to take over 6 square blocks of prime real estate in downtown Seattle. I mean, think about how many people were the victim of violent crimes? How many people had their possessions robbed? How many people had their cars set on fire? How many businesses folded? How many people were extorted? I mean, the list goes on and on.
Right. And I know that we're going to get into this here in a little bit about the hearing with Christopher Wray earlier, but that gets into the whole, at the very least, these governors and stuff, these state officials are facilitating the environment, allowing these things to occur, and they're essentially harboring, by definition, domestic terrorism. Mm-hmm. That was confirmed. Love or hate Wray. We're probably not even trying to get into that discussion today, but he did say, as FBI director, that following the definition of what would be, the legal definition of domestic terrorism is, that the actions that we're seeing fits it to that. But the problem that they're having is that there's not a specific charge allowed under how the law works, currently, to bring charges of domestic terrorism like they would to international terrorists. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue, that as far as the FBI's hands being tied, they could charge arson, they could charge, robbery, looting, all that mess. But as far as the actual domestic issue, they can't, there's no legal thing for it. And I think Trump would have to designate them as a domestic terrorist organization. And then that would open up the door, right?
Right. But you know what they can charge them with now is sedition. And this is another thing that AG Barr was suggesting to the U.S. attorneys that they charge these people with. Now, up until this point, it hasn't happened. But, I mean, this is exactly what they're doing. They're engaging in sedition, and they are engaging in terroristic activities. The United States government has gone after local groups in the past. What about when when Bill Clinton's FBI firebombed, Waco, firebombed David Koresh and that building full of women and children? I mean, they were going in there hard and heavy, and they certainly were not worried about the legalities of what they were doing. And I guess in a way, that's a good thing. I feel like President Trump, rather than just going after all of these groups and these individuals and trampling their civil rights, they are doing it in the way that they should. They're actually protecting the civil rights of Americans across the board. The problem is that while they're protecting our civil rights, these local leaders are allowing for the civil rights of their citizens to be specifically trampled upon, and they are the victim of criminal acts, of a whole host of criminal acts. So, it's a double-edged sword, do we want an authoritarian dictator, or do we want a constitutional republic? And quite frankly, I prefer a constitutional republic, but it only works if the leaders at the state and local level are following the law in the same way as the federal government. And what happens if they're not following that law? Well, then it looks like they could be charged under a whole host of criminal charges. I'm really, really hoping that's what they do, because it is the fault of the leadership right now, and it's their fault alone. President Trump and the DOJ and the federal government, they've got a different band of problems to worry about. And frankly, I think that branding the Black Bloc Brigade, Antifa, as a terror organization is just job one. They need to do this as soon as possible, because these people are acting in a manner that is completely against the United States and the honor that our Constitution deserves. They are just trampling all over everything. So, I would imagine once they are branded as a terror organization, things can start moving a lot more quickly. And actually, Christopher Wray's testimony today might certainly help out with that.
100%. And I do believe that that's going to be a marker. I know that Trump had tweeted out a few months ago that he was going to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think that was kind of like the warning shot. Like, you guys better, really think about the actions that you're about to do here, because I'm sure that they had intel that these things were going to be happening and going on. But that's going to be a huge marker, because as soon as Trump does that, we talked about this on my show yesterday, that anything Trump says, even if the media has to try to take it apart or say it's not true, they still have to cover it. Mm-hmm. So imagine having a press conference like how Trump does pretty much daily now, and saying, I'm officially doing this. I'm going to label them this, the terror organization. And this is how the actions are going to be. And these are the charges that we've already brought because the investigations have been going on. Wray admitted it today. Are we going to go ahead and get into that?
We are. Just I wanted to say something about the charges again in terms of the people in these local areas. I mean, there are state charges that apply in these situations. And the DOJ, if I'm not mistaken, generally defers to the states. They allow the states to charge. That's who is supposed to be taking care of this. There can be federal charges, but I believe that they want to go ahead with the state charges first because, states' rights and separation of powers across the board in different various levels of government. But in this specific instance, Barr is asking for sedition to be charged. Now, in order for that to happen, I don't know if it has to begin at the state level or if if the charges can just be brought at the federal level. But, let's see. But according to Law and Crime, the seditious conspiracy statute is a means of punishing those who conspire to violently overthrow or who oppose by force the authority of the United States government or who by force conspire to seize federal property. So in order to get a guilty verdict on that, they would have to have the evidence to show that they are seeking to violently overthrow and, or who oppose. So, I mean, they are opposing by force, I mean, who knows if they've got anything in writing or any messages saying that they want to take down the United States government. I mean, I'm sure that there's plenty of messages saying must remove Drumpf, but once again, the DOJ wants a rock-solid case. They're not going to waste their time and their efforts if they, are going to bring charges against somebody and then they're going to get off on a technicality. And again, I'm not a law fairy. I'm just an armchair observer. But I would love to hear from lawyers if we have any lawyers in the audience. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to jump over to the Christopher Wray's testimony. So, Methods, you got some great clips from that testimony today. They asked him about the Patriot movement, our favorite anon, and they also asked him about the Black Bloc Brigade, the anti-phase, and he had some interesting comments that were in direct conflict with what Jerry, the Doughboy Nadler, had to say about it.
Yeah, because if you watch how Wray was talking, and I'm like I said, I'm not going to sit here and cheerlead for him and all this stuff. You don't have to yell at me in the chat about saying, well, Wray lies, we can't trust him, fire him. I get that. I kind of agree. We need to get rid of Wray, or at least he's a placeholder for things going on. But the way he was describing it, because he was talking to Dan Crenshaw from Texas, and the questioning was asking him, about that definition of domestic terror, like what would fit that. And then he was describing what was going on that we're seeing in the streets and on the videos and all that's the chats, chop, all that mess. And if you listen to how Wray was talking, obviously he was dancing around it, but he was saying he did admit that they have current investigations going on and charges going on to people who, anti-Fay, is that what we're saying now?
Anti-Fay, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So these people were identifying as being a part of anti-Fay. It's not like they were sitting there saying, this looks like somebody that's a part of this movement. No, these people were saying, yeah, we are a part of this.
They proclaimed
and they were committing these actions that through the legal definition of domestic terror that, it would constitute as that. But then if you juxtapose what happened when they were discussing anti-Fay and all these riot stuff with the questioning about this movement, our favorite anon, it was entirely different. The major quote from Wray was, we view QAnon as less of an organization and more of a complex set of conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. If you kind of think about it, that's not wrong. I mean, how many times do we see, I know the word conspiracy theories kind of has been tainted and used against us. But if we want to talk about people theorizing about possibilities of a conspiracy going on, that happens all the time. We all can probably see something at least once a day if you spend enough time on Twitter, somebody making putting out a theory that you don't agree with, or it's extreme or whatever. That's fine. That's the public discussion. Think for yourselves, make your own opinions. But from an outside point of view, or let's just say an investigation thing as the FBI looking in on it, they would see all that mess going on, some being true, some not being true, and they would call it a complex set of conspiracy theories. That's not wrong.
No, not at all. But I mean, obviously people are going to take umbrage with the terminology conspiracy theories. But I mean, we're simplifying for, perspective from the federal government.
Right. And so the fact that, because the biggest part that they would have to do to come after us, which is what the Democrats are trying to set up, they're trying to tee this up with the whole, the FBI said that we are, violent extremists and all that stuff. The whole Arizona article thing that came out through Yahoo. They're trying to set this up to where we are basically what Antifa is doing.
Yeah.
And the big word involved in that is organization. Mm-hmm. Because if you have organization, then you can it falls into that domestic terror category. And so the fact that, Director Wray, who is the head right now, he can call, he called the shots, doesn't even consider us an organization. He understands the word legalese there, that not using that word, but then had no problem using that word talking about Antifa. Had no problem with that.
Right,
so
right.
Think about the back and forth going on there. If you just really listen to the words, and those clips are on my Twitter for anybody. I see some people in the chat asking about it.
Yeah. And, it's also worth mentioning that the FBI basically disavowed that memo that was released in that Yahoo News article. They haven't come forth and said anything else. They haven't stated that, yes, this is a legitimate opinion of the FBI. It wouldn't even have been the FBI to create that designation. That is a single person's, perspective on the situation. And they were putting that information on that document and releasing it to Yahoo News to give it an air of authenticity, even though it isn't. So, the way that Christopher Wray was discussing the rioters and the arsonists was very different from the way that he was talking about the Patriot movement. And as far as I'm concerned, Christopher Wray did not indicate at all that there was any danger from a larger group of people on our side, but there definitely is some danger from this large group of affiliated individuals on the other side. Now, somebody in the chat made an excellent comment. Most federal cases take 3 to 5 years of evidence gathering and investigation to be brought against someone. I don't know if anybody out there has ever had a federal case against them, but they're usually pretty exhaustive. They know exactly what you've done. They know exactly, all of the crimes you've committed, and they have it laid out pretty good because they don't play around. This is the DOJ and the FBI. If they're going to bring a federal case against you, they want to make sure that they're going to win, okay? And if they don't have the evidence, then obviously in administrations past, they have just cheated. But we're not doing that anymore. We're trying to, change it. Now, I'm not saying Christopher Wray is a good guy, but I'm saying that he had an opportunity to besmirch us. He had an opportunity to portray us in a certain manner, which was consistent with Sheila Jackson Lee's terminology and her phrasing of who and what we are. And he did not take the bite. He did not take the bait. He did not take the bait, but he did call them out for their characterization of the other side as essentially being peaceful protesters, okay? He did not characterize them in a good manner, and he didn't characterize us in a bad manner. I think that was very, very important. Very important.
Right, and during that hearing, because the hearing had to do with, homeland security and things going on like this stuff in the streets, there was a lot of good questions and a lot of, insinuations about even how BLM, by them doing their peaceful protests or whatever, facilitated the Antifa to be able to do what they were doing. And they were asking questions about, is there a correlation in between the two? And of course, Wray would be like, yeah, we're not going to talk about open investigations like that. But theoretically, if anybody's working with each other, we could prove it. We're going to follow that lead. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. And Barr's been saying a lot of that too, as far as just following his speech last night. I only caught part of it, that he did, and it was on a random website with a live stream, and he was talking about getting back to the rule of law and not making anything political. If the evidence is there, we follow it and go down that line, and we need to get back to that, let it be, blind justice, So, I'm not saying that Wray won me over this morning by any means, but the way the wording was going and what the Democrats were saying, but then also what the Republicans were saying, it lets me know that we're kind of going in the right direction here, that they can't poison the well of Antifa and anything BLM is doing and saying that we're also just as bad. You know what I mean? Yeah,
they're not going to be able to draw that connection between the two groups, the two wholly separate movements, organizations. I called this show The Tale of Two Movements, but it also let me know that it really does seem that the FBI is its own organization now. They're not just doing what their overlords in Congress or in the White House are telling them to do. And that gives me a lot of hope for the future. Obviously, we want justice. We want it now. We want everything to be wrapped up neat with a little bow, and we have certain outcomes that we want to see happen. But that's just not the way the world works. I mean, life is a series of disappointments, and then you die. Let's basically, let's just be honest. There's a lot of good things in between those disappointments, but it's inevitable, okay? Not everything is going to work out the way that you want it to. So this will eventually come to a conclusion. I think that they are clearly working in the background on these investigations. They have, just imagine all the data they've got. If we can get that much data about a couple of fake firefighters and our favorite Anon can post it on the board, okay, then just imagine what the federal government is capable of with given the exact same information, but with a whole lot more resources. I think everything's going to be fine.
Right. And also to that point of things taking long when it comes to justice and like federal charges and stuff, we're also in the middle of Rona, even though it does prolong things, just like how they said Durham had to jump around because you would have people that were like, okay, well, I would testify. Who said that? That was Clapper. He's like, I'll testify as soon as there's a vaccine. And, stuff like that.
Yeah, so good luck. He's coming in now, though.
Right. Well, I mean, he's being talked to, but I know definitely Comey is. Comey's going to be here. I know we're going to talk about that here shortly. Mm-hmm. He's about to testify, which will be interesting. Once again, watching body language and all that stuff. But as far as what we're talking about, how they're trying to compare us to the left's extremist movements, is you remember, I know it's only been a few months, but not everybody, but a lot of the talk of why are we not going out in the streets and fighting these people? Why are we not rising up? You remember all that? They were not.
I don't want to catch charges. That's why I'm not, Right. I mean, let those people burn themselves out.
Right. But I mean, people were saying, all right, Red Pill Methods, you need to use your platform and we need to organize and counter protest and do all this stuff. Now imagine doing that. Yeah. And all they would need is one video of it going ham and having a big fight in between the two. And then, jump to this hearing this morning.
Yeah.
And they would be showing footage of us doing that stuff. And I'm not trying to say we're right once again, but that's what we were seeing coming down the road. They were trying to get us to go out and mess with these people.
And then I'll call it, dude. I'll call it. I think we were right.
But yeah, no, that's kind of the writing on the wall that we would see, because how could they justify, the actions of Antifa and everything going on? Now they just try to say it was a myth. They try to say it's not that big of a deal. Now they're trying to say it's a small group because there are more lights being put on them. But if they had just, like I said, a video or two or a crime scene situation that was an organic from this movement getting in a fight and somebody got injured or God forbid killed in between us and Antifa, that would be wall-to-wall coverage and would help the argument that they're trying to make about us.
Can you imagine if Kyle Rittenhouse had been wearing like a Q shirt?
Oh yeah, that we would be having an entirely different discussion right now, and the hearing this morning would have went a lot differently. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to kind of be smart about this, but like we always say, your decisions are your own. Do what you want to do, but as far as what we do with our time and stuff online, we're not going to persuade people in a direction that we don't think is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just happened to. Now, okay, I'm just going to say this out loud once again. I don't have the ability to read all of my Twitter messages, and I definitely don't sit in my Twitter inbox looking for people who are DMing me, because if I did that, I would only be doing that. That would be the only thing, because everybody would immediately respond. But I just saw a message from Kalina and Charles in Cumbria, UK. And Charles is apparently incapacitated from the neck down due to multiple sclerosis. And Kalina is there with him as his caregiver, and they listen to the show every single day, Methods, and they just asked if we could give them a shout out. So I just figured I would go ahead and do that. I hope you guys are listening right now, and thank you very much for keeping up with the show. It means a lot to us. This is, an important thing in my life. I mean, maybe like the top three. It would be the top three. Okay, so next, in regards to what Christopher Wray was saying, obviously the awareness and the understanding in the federal government is becoming more clear. But The Hill was taking part in a poll recently asking just average everyday Americans about their awareness of this movement. And it was actually released by the Pew Research Center. Now, 47% of the respondents said they had heard or read about this movement. This was conducted between August 31st and September 7th. Now, that was up 23% from a survey that asked the same questions back in March. So that's, essentially a double-digit jump, 50% more people. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm like over 100% more people than were there with the information back in March. But 38% of those respondents said they had only been exposed to that theory a little bit. So they're probably hearing about it from the mainstream media, from, all of the talking heads, and brought to you by the letter Q. And that's really their only exposure to it. Now, I tend to think that number is like totally far deflated, okay? To think that, out of 47%, so that's only 11% of the respondents that knew, like a significant portion about what this movement's about. I think that we, on a global scale, reach far more than 11% of the, adult population.
I agree. And you have to think, when people like Bill Maher make fun of us, when it's something that let's just say as an audience member that's never heard of it, but especially having Joe Rogan talk about it multiple times, even if it's in a negative light, you hear this thing and you're like, what is this QAnon that I keep hearing about? And yeah, they search it in Google and then they get told all the crazy stuff. But if they just take it a step further and then actually look at the content of people, that like the stuff that we put out on Twitter and here on YouTube and the discussions that happen, they realize quickly that we're not that crazy to begin with. And that's why having this whole environment of the media being proven to lie about just about everything in the Trump administration. Yeah. If people could just pick up on that enough and they aren't just closed-minded and just sit, well, I've always been Democrat, so I'm going to stay with it. They actually have an opportunity to wake up. I know that they want to blame the Rona and people being stuck at home, and then us targeting those people sitting at home like we're campaign, managers trying to win people over to Team Q. They're trying to blame it on that, but we've watched this grow from the jump, and it's just been increasing over time, and it ends up being proven a little bit more and more. And it's more about it's became more about than just the posts, if you think about it. And I'm not trying to degrade anything about Q posts. I mean, we all love them. We love to read them. But the work that we're doing comes from the motivation of those posts of what we should be doing anyways. That's why they just go to these posts and like, oh, this one thing wasn't true, so it's all fake. And they're following a LARP on a dark web board and all that stuff. But if you think about the actions of what we're doing across all social media platforms, that's the real fear that they have, is us doing that.
Absolutely. All right, so let me see. Okay, so in regards to the growing awareness of this movement, Twitter is taking additional steps to attempt to stifle that growing awareness. They want to make sure that fewer people see our tweets and maybe see our hashtags, and they're increasing their efforts to suppress and manipulate the results that you see on that platform, because they don't want the messages of this movement to be broadcast and for people to gain a greater understanding about what this is all about. They want the gatekeepers to continue to be the only source of education for your average American. So, you know, they want you to see Brian Stelter talking about a baseless theory, and they want to see, you know, Joe Scarborough telling you that he did not murder Lori Klausutis. I mean, and I'm not saying he did. It's an alleged situation. But they put out this article through their help section, but they're calling it coordinated harmful activity. Coordinated harmful activity. So back in July, remember, they began removing tweets associated with our favorite Anon from trends and recommendations, and then not highlighting them in conversations and search. And then the impressions on this content, they say, dropped more than 50%, decreasing the amount of unhealthy and harmful content on timelines. Now, I think this has more to do with the fact that, well, I mean, let's just say, number one, I mean, they deleted a ton of people. They deleted a ton of people, and I think that scared a lot of people off from using a lot of the hashtags and saying things in the prescribed way that we had previously. What do you think, Methods?
Right. Well, if you think about if people want to say big accounts, people that had a large following because they've been working for a long time, if you add them up, I think there was just a handful that equaled 1.5 million followers. I know a lot of them would be, you know, following all of them would be just, you know, but the fact that they could reach that many people at a time, then you take those away, of course that would drop the impressions.
Yeah.
I mean, even from last month to this month, I'm at half in my analytics, and I'm not complaining, but I'm at half of page views, like coming to my actual Twitter page, that I was at this time last month.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. And I still get people telling me all the time that they can't see my tweets or they never show up in their news feeds or whatever. And they're going to do another ramping up of this. But I see that second tweet in that thread is them just the blatant, like admitting to censorship. They have no problem. Now, they said that they were looking into it. They were going to curb stuff, but they're giving you actual numbers now. It dropped more than 50%. But once again, we all got kind of smart. We talk about it a little bit differently. So as far as their AI algorithms, like crunching these numbers, you know, we had to go underground, and that came from our favorite Anon saying that we had to do that too.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I mean, it's very clear that censorship is at play here. They have just, you know, no desire to censor like truly violent and harmful content when it relates to physical harm to people on the right. When it results in doxing or offensive, you know, tweets about people on the right. And, you know, it's a very, very clear double standard. And I just have one question. Where is the DOJ and the FCC on Section 230? Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we heard is that Barr was looking at doing something about it. I believe it was in, April? Or it might have been July. Yeah. And then recently there's been discussions, like the chatter is getting into the media, that Barr is looking to do something by the end of this month. But it doesn't help the whole conversation. And I'll say this now. I have no problem saying this. I have complete faith in Barr. You know, complete faith in the sense of I still need to reserve some, you know, judgment and look at the other way just to keep an open mind about it. But each time I watch Barr, and especially after watching him last night and how he talks about things, I don't see him, because there's this narrative going around, and I can't tell if it's a shill thing or it's patriots that genuinely feel this way and they're just pessimistic. But it's, you know, Barr just kicks the can down the road. It's something I see being said a lot lately. And once again, free speech, say what you want. I entirely disagree with anybody saying that. And it's okay that we don't agree on things. But as far as that goes, there's got to be reasoning behind it. And we have to think about these investigations, just like how we were talking about things taking longer. You know, investigations, you have to make sure things are solid. You have to make sure that how it affects things, because we're talking about social media that affects the market as well. You have to think about it. If they were to take them down and do all that stuff, think about the stock market dropping right before the election.
Right.
There's many things to, you know, involved in that. So I don't have all the answers, but I do believe Barr's going to do something. if it takes a little bit longer, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, excellent points. I feel the exact same way. It seems, what I don't like is when people message me and say, you're an idiot, Barr isn't going to do a damn thing, or they tell me that, their way, their understanding of how the DOJ is working is what's actually taking place. I mean, I feel like people who come at me like that have absolutely zero concept of the nuance involved in all of these decisions. I mean, just because you're angry and you want this to happen right now, or, you feel that Barr's actions are leading to a certain conclusion, does not mean that that's what's actually happening. I mean, that's just your own individual perception. And like you said, Methods, we all have the right to draw our own opinions about a situation. But, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do also have complete faith in Bill Barr. And I think that Bill Barr cares about this country. I think that he's working to, bring it back to a level of homeostasis that we haven't had here for many, many years. He's got to level the playing field for everyone. And in order to get those cases successfully brought, there's a lot of groundwork that has to be laid, and it's not just at the DOJ. I mean, it's across the board in the judiciary. I mean, it's at the local and the state level as well as the federal level in so many different agencies, not just the FBI, not just the DOJ, many, 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 many places. These people have been in power and have been stacking the deck against us in their favor for decades, I mean, for probably longer than that, probably over 100 years. So it's a lot of damage that has to be undone. Whatever. I mean, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait on Bill Barr. I'm going to continue to try to educate people, and I'm going to continue to try to decipher the moves that he's making. But he strikes me as someone who is like the turtle in the hare, okay? Slow and steady wins the race. I think that he is sitting back, and he's also not going to talk openly about what's going on. I mean, anytime people have tried to bait him on an open investigation, he just shuts it down. He's not going to give any information. He's not going to broadcast the moves to the enemies. He's not going to give us a nibble on something so that we can feel better. I mean, forget your feelings. I mean, this is law and order. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree with you there. And Elizabeth Coles in the chat says, just let it go in one ear and out the other when they criticize. I agree, and I really try to practice that, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's up to now, like every day it's increasing more and more. And I can't speak for everybody else who's doing things like these channels or run social media, accounts that have a quote unquote bigger following. But I get attacked pretty much every day now. If I really go look at like notifications and stuff, I get attacked left and right. I got a call. Yesterday I got said I have a big ego because I didn't want to cover all the Q posts during my show yesterday because I spent all morning preparing things to bring to the audience that I wanted to cover, and I brought up the option of 412 show coming up right after, and he would be going over them. Right. And I was told, I wouldn't have gotten popular if it wasn't for Q, and I need to cover Q posts because that's my job. And it was from somebody I didn't know. And that's what I'm saying. Like, what if we're thinking for ourselves and we're, allowing people to make their own decisions, then why can't I practice that, what I preach? Why can't I do that? So we might vent on this show every once in a while just because we're constantly getting bombarded with it one way or another. And we just want to get through the election and stay comfy throughout it. But no, we do appreciate you guys who always step up and, show us love and support. We love that. On top of that, we got 3,700 people here hanging out with us, 1.5 thousand likes. If you guys don't mind turning that thumb blue, that would be great. And thank you guys for any donations that you guys are doing.
Yeah. So, and I want everybody to keep in mind that we're human. Okay, I mean, there's only so much that we can do to try to manage the expectations. In my case, of 258,000 people. In Method's case, he's got over 200,000 people following him on Twitter. What is it now?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Several 100,000 people. There's no way that everyone is ever going to be completely satisfied. It's a real balancing act. And then on top of our research and the shows that we're producing, we got families too, man. I mean, it's difficult not to feel those criticisms against us, because I know that I'm a perfectionist, okay? I want to do so much every single day, and it's just impossible, you know? I mean, I'm overworked and underpaid, and that's fine because I'm working for the president and for this country. But, you know, I mean, I'm quite literally living the dream. I just wish that I had more capacity in my brain and more time in the day so that I could put out more content for you guys to be able to consume. But I appreciate all of you who are here. I appreciate everybody who shares these shows and likes them, everybody who supports the channel. I wouldn't be able to do it, and Methods wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for you guys. So, moving on to the next hit piece about our favorite anon in the Patriot movement, Al Jazeera America, which is, you know, obviously we know about the history of Al Jazeera. They are now writing about the unholy alliance between President Trump, evangelicals, and our favorite anon. You know, was there criticism of President Trump courting the evangelical section of Republican voters back in 2016? I seem to remember people criticizing him for choosing Mike Pence so that he could have the evangelicals come on board with him, because they were not necessarily fans of President Trump initially.
Yeah, it happened back then, and then it happened recently again when they tried to put out one of those sources say Trump said this about the evangelicals after they were done praying for him. So they always try to, you know, show that Trump has ulterior motives when it comes to the church, and he's just using them for votes because it's his base or whatever.
You know, I think that that's a simplistic opinion at best. I don't think that President Trump is using anyone. And I think that if any of these organizations were to honestly take a real good look at what President Trump has done, take a look at the way he acts and the way he treats people, he appreciates every single one of the American public. Doesn't matter if they're a Democrat, doesn't matter if they're a Republican, he represents every single one equally. And, you know, he reaches out to people. Man, remember I was talking about JR? Okay, when President Trump learned about his lawn sign, he had the Secret Service reach out to him and had JR join their motorcade. He got to meet the president at the Whirlpool factory. I mean, President Trump does more like one-on-one outreach with the voters here in America than any other president I've ever heard about. I never heard a story about Bill Clinton calling and reaching out to somebody unless they were an intern. But same thing with Obama. You know, they would have to be actually a choir boy in Chicago for him to reach out to them. That's too inside. It's too inside.
Right. Welcome to Dad Jokes with Red Pill 78.
Oh, man. Okay, but those guys never reached out to just your average everyday working stiff, okay? They didn't see somebody posting something online and saying, you know, oh, that guy looks like a good guy. I'm gonna go, you know, fly him out here and have him come up and shake my hand and tell him thank you for your vote. You know, that was not the way these people behaved. There is no unholy alliance between the evangelicals and the Patriot movement and President Trump. President Trump represents the evangelicals in the same way that he represents every patriot, in the same way that he represents every Democrat voter. It doesn't matter, okay? He's not doing this so that he can just win another election. You know, once again, this is projection at its finest. Because this is how Democrats think. This is how they think. They think about how they can best use people. If you guys have ever seen like a TV show or a movie about the inside workings of a campaign, like Veep on HBO, there's an excellent example. It's satirical, okay, but that's how they act. They are ruthless. And the same with House of Cards with that disgusting pig Kevin Spacey. But it's an actual look at how campaigns work and how the political machinations of people in Washington are, you know, worked out every single day.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm just reading all the comments in the chat, laughing at your dad jokes.
Did you guys like them? Because there's a bit of a lag between the chat and then, you know, what I say. So I never know if it really lands very well. But yeah. Okay. Hopefully you guys like the sense of humor I got. But I'll be bringing more of that later.
Yeah, but to your point, as far as Trump, he does feel, even though he has a massive audience, he's got a whole country to run. He's very busy on working on stuff for us. They always say he doesn't ever sleep and all that. And he's also on Twitter as much as we are, if not more. It does feel like you have a personal connection with him. He has a good way of going about things, and he does take time to do that. The story of our buddy Jason. Jason woke up in Vegas.
Yep.
And now that whole situation that happened at the rally, how personal they made that there. Even Don Jr. took time out of the rally and stuff and being prepared for that to go chat with Jason for a second.
Yep.
That's a beautiful thing. So of course they have to try to divide from the base. And we were saying that they're going to have to come out with lies and even more stuff, sources and whistleblowers to try to divide pieces of Trump's base coming up to the election. And religion, churches, evangelicals is the word that they're using for everybody. That is a big part of his base.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to try to separate us all.
Yeah, but it's not going to work. We are smarter than they think. We are far more cunning and discerning. And, I think it's hilarious that we've got Al Jazeera putting this report out, especially in light of President Trump's historic leaps forward in terms of peace in the Middle East. Now, you said earlier in the show that it doesn't matter what it is, the mainstream media covers whatever Trump does. This is something they are not covering. They are fully ignoring the fact that he brought together these previously adversarial nations to sign a historic peace agreement. I didn't see anything about it except on right-wing websites and news sources.
No, well, they not to correct you there, but they did talk about it a little bit, but it was about how Trump's using this as a distraction to, of all the problems of him handling. They used it as an attack to fit their narrative. But I agree with you. They should have at least, you would think, give him a day and say, all right, you brought some peace to the Middle East. Mm-hmm. We said we were going to do for decades and didn't do it. But yeah, they barely touched on it, if not at all.
And not to mention, being nominated twice in the same season for a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, they try everything they can to not give any press to his accomplishments. And if they do report on them, they report on it in a dismissive way. Oh, President Trump thinks this is a good thing. Oh, what an idiot. And it's a sad, sad thing. Now, I can't wait for these people to just eat their feet on November 3rd. I don't know that they're going to do it right away, but I think that in the end, they are definitely going to be eating their own shoes. President Trump is going to get elected again. Also, I had something that somebody sent me, you guys. This is some Biden-Harris campaign mail that was sent to a viewer, and it includes a vote-by-mail application. Now, the vote-by-mail application, it seems like that would be something like, it's nonpartisan. You're registering wherever it is that you live. But no, the Biden-Harris or the Harris-Biden campaign paid for this vote-by-mail application to get sent out for a viewer for their local area. And apparently this is the only election collateral that's been sent out by the Harris-Biden campaign. I haven't gotten anything myself at home. I know that I haven't heard anybody walking around my neighborhood trying to raise awareness for the fact that Joe Biden is even running for president. I haven't, I've seen a couple of Joe Biden signs, and I've seen a couple of anti-Trump signs. Like my real red pill girlfriend and I were talking about this like a couple weeks ago, and then I saw it in one of my neighbor's yard. He's a libertarian, so I guess I was hoping that he wasn't going to be anti-Trump. But the yard sign says any competent adult for 2020. And, and then there's another one, which is, it's like a profile of President Trump, and it's all orange, and it says, dump Trump or something like that. But like I said, this is a Democrat area, so maybe they think that they don't need to walk around, they don't need to do any outreach. But I think that this is going to be a serious detriment to them, and I think it's going to be very obvious when you get down to the actual election.
Right, and I mean down here in the South, where it's predominantly red, I haven't seen any campaigning and stuff for Biden. I actually see more like old bumper stickers or even like signs in yards of people that just don't care for Bernie than I do for Biden, and Bernie's not even running. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, I haven't got a knock on door about anything. I haven't seen them walk around neighborhoods and stuff, but I do believe that they down here know that it's a lock for a Republican vote.
Yeah. Now, in comparison, I get mail from President Trump or the RNC on an almost daily basis. There's always something in my mailbox. They're spending a lot of money on outreach, and I think that is really going to pay off. Now, I also know that they send out collateral like that based upon your likelihood of voting for a Democrat or Republican. So if you've already voted Republican, they're going to know that, and so you're going to be on the Republican list, and then they're going to send it to you. That way they don't have to spend money wasting it. But that's where those people walking door to door come in. That's why that is so important. So, I guess, we'll see what happens, but I'm not anticipating seeing any Joe Biden representatives walking around the neighborhood.
If we're talking about things being sent over, I had to mute my email notifications because of how much the Trump campaign messages me throughout the day. I'd get side eye from my wife thinking I'm talking to somebody behind her back. Like, what's the conversation you're having over there? No, it's just Trump.
I'll kill her.
Right. I mean, definitely the Trump campaign is using the email chain to its fullest extent. I've gotten all the way up to 12, if not 15 emails before in one day from them.
I get text messages 15 times a day from the Trump team too. Yeah. It's funny, when we first signed up for them, we would look at each other and be like, honey, look, I got a text from the president.
Right. And now it's like, man, you don't even look at your phone anymore when it goes off. You just assume it's the president's campaign.
That's right. You're like, Parscale, leave me alone. Okay, so I just have a couple of very quick thank yous. My buddy Andrew, so I think that this article he sent over, which is from 2016, but Fox News was funneling money. Where did that article go? They were funneling money into something that was not good for the president. Shoot, I don't know what happened to it. Here it is. Oh, yeah, that's right. Fox money flows into Open Borders Group. So that's why we have the Soros uncomfortable segment from the very beginning of the show. I mean, they're all intertwined. I mean, we knew that Fox is comped on already. And for anybody who likes Fox, I love watching Tucker. Okay, I'll catch Hannity when I can, and I even watch The Five. Jesse Waters, but. There's a lot more than just those guys at Fox. There are many comped people there at Fox, and of course, I think Paul Ryan is comped too. But thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that. Also, Chris, he said, "Where we go one, we go all." Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that. Leslie with a 17. Thank you very much, Leslie. I appreciate you there. And then our good friend of the program, Gaffer Anon. Gaffer Anon, he's sending me a couple of shirts. They'll be here on Tuesday. Vape on, Gaffer. Thank you very much, bro. I appreciate you there. And I certainly hope that you are safe and sound there in your hideaway in an undisclosed location. Let me just check on PayPal. We'll see if there's any thank yous to give there. And there is nothing. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your support. Now, the next story we wanted to talk about is something that is not surprising to me, but what is surprising is that more people are not coming out and saying this. Chris Rock called out the Democrats, and he called out Congress. He said that they let the pandemic come in while they were pushing impeachment. Now, I'm really proud of Chris Rock for standing up and actually saying this, because it's true. Nancy Pelosi walking around Chinatown saying, come visit. And, they were angry with President Trump for locking the country down. They were focused on impeachment because they wanted this multi-pronged attack. And they thought that President Trump being focused on impeachment wouldn't be able to do what he needed to do to, I guess, mitigate the circumstances surrounding the beer bug. And Chris Rock, he called it out. He said it was totally up to Pelosi and the Democrats. Their thing was, we're going to get him impeached, which was never going to happen. You let the pandemic come in. Yes, we can blame Trump, but he's really the 5-year-old. I take issue with that right there. President Trump did everything he could, given the information that he had, and I would say that everything is better than it could have been. Okay, who knows the true nature of this sickness? Okay, none of us do. there's been some new reporting on very, very few channels, but Tucker did a great segment on this. The virologist from Hong Kong who escaped and brought with her the evidence to show that this sickness was manufactured, so to speak, by the military in a certain Asian country, by the CCP. And it's being censored, okay? She is being censored. And, when you're looking at a situation like that, it's a military attack, okay? There's only so much you can do. I mean, I suppose they've probably considered the possibility that something like that might come out of China. But, I mean, who knows how much planning they did for it? I don't know. I don't blame President Trump for anything. What do you think, Methods?
All right. Well, first off, Bruce Wayne in the chat is asking you in all caps, very serious, for you to double check your PayPal. So if you'll do that for Bruce, that'd be great. But no, I agree. And when you talk about it being through the military, the Chinese military, that reminds me of Hunter Biden's connection to the Chinese military as well.
Yes.
And you have to kind of think that they would probably be a lot of these same shot callers that were involved in these deals that were being made for the Chinese military, that we were basically selling off everything from America through Hunter Biden and allowing these things to take place. So it's not surprising that they would be the same names, or at least the same entity would show up here in the middle of an election that Biden is the candidate.
Absolutely. And we've got a follow-up on that, but give me just 1 second so I can... They popped up now. Apparently, they were hiding it, but from 2 days ago, Mark, thank you very much. From 2 days ago, Lourdes. From 2 days ago, Ricky says, keep it up, man. God bless. Thank you very much, Ricky. From today, Barbara says, love your show. Highlight of my day. Thank you so much, Barbara. Appreciate that. From Bruce Wayne. Let me see, Bruce. Bruce, I'm not certain that you want me to read this, but I will say thank you. I will say thank you. And then Hey Jude says, I'm sure that you've heard that the veteran that Jason and his friend carried down the stairs at that rally passed away a month or two ago. I'm glad he got to see POTUS before he died. Yes, I did hear that. And I, too, am very, very grateful that he had the opportunity to be, carried down those stairs and to meet the president and to, show his patriotism and receive the just reward that he was deserving of for sacrificing what he did in World War II. And, when I saw Jason carrying him down the stairs, I knew that he probably wasn't long for this world. And I can bet you that is probably the culmination of a life lived, paying homage and respect to the country of his birth, to America. I thought it was a great way to go ahead and just cap it off.
Yeah, and that was definitely a beautiful moment, and we're really proud of Jason for being involved in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just real quick to tie it back around to what you were saying, it's also we all remember that Pelosi held on to the impeachment articles and waited and had a reason and said she wouldn't give it. And she was just, when she was ready for it, she said even there was a specific time that she planned for, and then she brings it over, and then they tried their hardest to get the Senate trial, knowing they wouldn't get the votes. Ultimately, they wanted the witnesses. Remember how bad they wanted John Bolton?
Oh, yes.
So imagine Trump just being tied up and all that stuff into March, April, and even May while the Rona's going on. And they're like, oh, well, we need to postpone it even longer because we can't meet because the Rona's so bad. And then tie it all the way through to where Trump would have been ultimately, he could have been in a kind of a purgatory state of impeachment all the way to the election while trying to handle everything going on with the virus. You could see how they really tried that if they had just were able to get the witnesses.
Yeah. All right. Now, USMC Laters is asking for the link to the Chris Rock article, and I just went ahead and dropped it right in there. Yeah, if it was up to the Democrats, I mean, they would have carried on the impeachment scam as long as they possibly could. But, I mean, because every scandal, inevitably goes away because there's nothing to it. It is a nothing burger. They have to come up with something else, and they just have to keep dogpiling on the president. And, I mean, if you think about that, if you think about the entire length of his presidency, how they have just been dumping on him, it's amazing how much he's gotten done. What about that clip, methods that you put out yesterday of Pelosi with her fake emotional moment, 200,000, and it was like, clutch chest and bow head, like she knew exactly what she was doing.
Right. Yeah. As soon as I saw that section, I was like, I know people hate when I tweet out clips of these people because they're frustrating as hell, but it took off and I was really glad it did because the trash talking on that tweet is great. I'll drop it in the chat, read the comments. Don't even worry about liking or retweeting it from me, but the comments from people are gold. Yeah. And, and all I'll have to say that is eyebrows when you're watching it. Just watch the eyebrows. It's insane. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that it's faking emotion to a T. And that's the problem because they're dead inside. And they don't know how to. They know that they don't care. I mean, think about how they handled it. She handled the situation with the haircut stuff. And all they did was then ruin that woman's life.
Yes.
Ruined her business, all because it made Nancy got caught and looked bad. So she had no problem doing that and had no problem with people calling her out on how obvious it was that she was doing that. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they're going to sit here and like, okay, I really need to cry on command and look sad. Okay, how do they do that? Put my hands on my chest, drop my head down, and then give my moment looking into the camera. And then I'm going to go back to my talking point. And there was no real emotional change throughout all of it. It's robotic. It's just like having, a demon trying to act human because they watched a couple acting classes or something.
Yeah, obviously. All right, so I saw when I mentioned that I did a segment on Norm Eisen that people in the chat said they had no idea. So this was from September 9th. And it's the first segment in the video. So I'm putting the link in the description or in the chat box there so you guys can check that out if you have not seen it yet. So, going back to Hunter Biden and all of that foreign money that he had coming in, at the time that it was happening, I guess that money was flagged by the Treasury because it was foreign money, and they said that it was suspicious. So They police financial threats such as money laundering, and they flagged several foreign transactions to Hunter Biden-connected businesses as suspicious during the end of the Barry Obama administration and the beginning of the Trump administration. Because don't forget, Hunter Biden sat on the Burisma board until April of 2019. He's got some cojones, either that or he just really, really wanted that money train to keep flowing. He couldn't afford to turn it off.
Right. Or they said, hey, you're going to stay in for whatever reason. But I just want a friendly reminder, everybody, because I know that we have our favorite Anon pointing at this week and next week. Pay attention to the events. And we've already had some very interesting things, take place over the last few days.
Yeah.
Alone. But definitely we're all keeping an eye out for stuff. And I know our minds might immediately go to some indictments and stuff like that. But there is a shark under the water here that we're supposed to be getting, I think, from Ron Johnson and his committee, a report on Hunter Biden's connections, even further, the financial connections of the Biden family, specifically through Hunter Biden and China. They've been talking about this, and it kind of just gets drifted away. We kind of forget about it for a moment.
Well, I mean, because they were in the process of trying to get all those people to come in and testify. Here's the thing. They like to have this pretense of gentlemanly conduct in the House and the Senate, but when it comes down to it, if these people don't want to come in willingly to testify, that's when the subpoena power is used, and so that's what they finally done. I did a big story on this yesterday. Something like 40 names from the Obama administration are going to come in and have to testify, and that's like Clapper, Comey, Brennan, Stefan Halper. I don't know if Joseph Mifsud was on that list, but Tashina Gar was. Andrew McCabe was on that list too. Anybody who was involved in like the mid-year exam and the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, all of these people are going to have to come in and testify. And that all links inextricably with the Hunter Biden Ukraine stuff. So they're planning on putting out some major bombshell reports here very soon.
Right, because you're talking a lot about the speed of power stuff when it comes to Spygate and all that. And I know that they were trying to bring in what were they called, Blue Star, the lobbyist group in DC. But anyways, all that evidence, like from like what Rudy Giuliani had gathered, remember all that stuff going on, bringing the information, it's all flooded in there for them to go through. And I believe that they're going to have the report come out to where we have factual information to go through. Mm-hmm. And they did say that it would be they were shooting for by the end of this month, which would fit in that timeline. So that's what I'm saying. There's multiple things at play here, and I just wonder if it is going to be, and I hate to use the word avalanche because it gets used too much, but just a bunch of information dropped down. And I'm saying don't sleep on that stuff with Hunter Biden, because that's the 1 degree straight into Joe Biden and his financial crimes.
Absolutely.
And so having that pop off, and especially with the investigations going on in Ukraine and our treaty with them when it comes to, crimes committed in corruption amongst the countries, I do believe that Barr is right when he says that nobody is under investigation when it comes to Spygate that's running for president or in the campaign right now. But that's an entirely different beast being handled by entirely different people.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Blue Star and their connection to Hunter Biden. This is the company that was money laundering for Ukraine and that just got raided in Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. But that whole situation is all connected to those raids that took place in Ohio and down in Florida. Now, on Saturday, I have a guest. His name is Rob Weber. He's actually running for Congress in that area in Ohio, and he knows all about this situation, and we're going to be talking about it in depth on Saturday night. He's also very, very up to date on the issues with human trafficking taking place in Ohio as well. Ohio is like top of the board for human trafficking. You can't forget that Les Wexner lives there and all of his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So if you guys want to talk about human trafficking and the Ukraine situation, be here Saturday night, because we're going to be discussing it in depth. And then on Friday night, Black Conservative Patriot, BCP, good friend of the channel, he's going to be here, and we're going to be talking, about a broad range of subjects, because obviously so much has happened since the last time he was on the show. And then on the 20th, Adam, I can't remember his last name because it's Adam Cast IRL. What's his last name?
Adam Krigler. Anybody who's caught, because the Timcast IRL podcast had taken off, because a lot of it had to do with their banter back and forth, because he was the one that was predominantly left-leaning, or if not very much Democrat, and through all this process has kind of gotten his way to where now he's voting for Trump and he supports what Trump's doing. So we reached out to Adam, so he's going to come on this Sunday and hang out with us and have a good conversation. Might play some music or something, whatever he wants to chat about.
Right on. Okay, so Hey Jude sent another donation. The 5-year-old was in reference to the little boy in The Emperor Has No Clothes. He's the only one who saw and said the truth. I don't think it was a negative connotation. What was the 5-year-old? Oh. In Chris Rock's statement. Oh, that is very, very astute, Hey Jude. All right, so Chris Rock was not throwing shade at President Trump. Here's the thing, because, you think about The Emperor Has No Clothes. The 5-year-old was the one who called it out, saying he was naked, and everybody else was like, no, you can't say that. Don't tell us the truth. President Trump was the only one telling the truth. That is so great. All right, I got even more respect for Chris Rock now. That is really cool. All right, so this is something actually I forgot to bring up at the beginning of the show, talking about the financing for all of these, various activities, this direct action by these anarchist groups taking place all across the United States. We know that Kamala Harris was involved with funneling money into that bail fund to get these people out of jail. Well, that bail fund, which was promoted by Kamala Harris, candidate on the Democrat ticket for the Vice President of the United States of America, she helped a man who has been accused of abusing a child, and in the worst possible way. What is this? This is an 8-year-old girl, Methods. It's just, lost for words, man.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to it, because I would get this channel deplatformed even more than it has already.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of stuff that has to be exposed and talked about. So.
Yeah. And yesterday in my show, I talked about Biden and Harris's endorsement of a Michigan candidate for Congress who had a blog where he discussed openly crystal meth usage. He called women breeders, and he talked about 4-year-olds in thongs. So, this is just another example of the kind of thing that you're going to be seeing if Democrats take control of this country again. It's going to be a very, very quick downward slide into degeneracy, even worse than they've already perpetrated upon this country. Now, this is kind of funny. New York is facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit. They're in bad shape, and New York City is probably never going to return to the same glory that it was before. You know, even if the streets of New York weren't necessarily safe, it was vibrant. There were a lot of people there. There were businesses that were open and operating, and there was a self-sustaining economy. Well, as a result of all of that damage that was done, all of the preemptive work that was done to stop the damage, businesses being boarded up, businesses just closing their doors and taking off. A lot of them saw what happened at every single Target location where these people showed up, and they said, not me. I'm not letting that happen to our company. And they just shut it down. They shut it down. People are out of work. I think something like 30% of the units in New York City are not paying their rent. People are unable to pay the notes on those buildings. Business owners are in really bad shape. There is no tax revenue coming in. And Bill de Blasio has had to furlough himself and nearly 500 city employees. Basically, the city government of New York City is on the dole. They are not working.
Yeah, and that's what we expect for things to go. You know, we expected for it to go down that road, and the fact that now they're having to cut their own paychecks through furlough, you know, to kind of supplement some of the money to get by, lets you know how much they need help. And that's why we've got people like Pelosi that are refusing to give the American people a stim check to help them out unless they get money to bail out states like New York who need this money desperately. And I do believe that, you know, if they're not voted out of office, this conversation about can they charge these leaders of these states with certain things, I guess, you know, negligence. I mean, obviously we got stuff going on when it comes to the old folks homes and everything going on there. But if you think about it, there's got to be something as a mismanagement to the point where you're defaulting as a state or as a city. There's got to be something, you know, that can be used to take them out of office based off that alone.
Well, you know, and President Trump already talked about denying them additional federal monies because of their mismanagement of these cities. And I have to actually issue a correction. It's not a $2 billion deficit. It is a $9 billion loss of revenue. He already had to lay off 22,000 local government employees. No, I'm sorry. That's what he's going to have to lay off here in October. But that's in addition to himself and the 500 or so other people. This is a staggering development. I mean, it's not surprising at all. But it's almost like these people want to put themselves out of a job. I mean, this is the kind of thing that forces the federal government to come in and have to take over. I don't know if you guys remember, but there have been a couple of different American cities which just ran themselves into the ground, and the federal government came in and you know, had to take over. They had to take over the local government so they could get them back up and running. I know Detroit was one of them. I'm sure that there were others, if anybody wants to say. Now, Susan King says New York State has a $35 billion deficit or debt, and that was before the beer bug came in. So I can only imagine it is so much worse now at the end of it. And Real Red Pill Girlfriend finally was able to show up. I love you, honey. Thank you for being here. You'll have to rewind and watch from the beginning. I felt like this was a good episode. I felt like we had a lot of good things to say. I mean, I guess I feel that they're always good episodes, but I think I particularly enjoyed it today.
Yeah, I had fun. Chatting about all this stuff, and we want to thank everybody for hanging out. If you guys are looking for something else to watch, here in about an hour, our buddy 412 is going to be on. I imagine Dilly will be there. Now, I don't know if Frank's going to be on or not. That'll be an interesting thing. Maybe 412 can let us know in the chat, but I'm going to drop a live link right now to that real quick. And then I also am going to shamelessly plug, I will be live tomorrow with 412 on my channel at 2:30 p.m. Eastern for our Friday show.
Beautiful. Now, before we go, also TikTok sent me over an article on Discord there was, looks like this is in Seattle. So a woman's body was found murdered in Seattle's Cal Anderson Park. And it looks like the murder suspect has been identified as Travis Burge. He is a habitual offender who was engaged in an hours-long standoff with police that spanned the overnight and stretched into Thursday morning. Unfortunately, the woman is dead. But it's directly due to the efforts, the lawlessness of Mayor Jenny Durkan that this guy was not put in prison. He wasn't put in jail. They just kept dropping charges against him, and he was going to continue breaking the law. I mean, psychopaths are going to break as many laws as we allow them, and as long as these Democrat mayors and Democrat governors keep allowing these people to get out scot-free, and their Soros-appointed city attorneys decide not to do anything about it, people's lives are at risk, you guys. All right, so once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I hope that I will see you on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Don't forget about the Red Pill News podcast, which is out now on all major podcast platforms. I am not leaving YouTube. I'm just publishing the podcast in addition to the shows that I produce here. So let's say you guys are driving often and you don't want to watch the video. You just want to get an audio. Then you can go ahead and download it through Apple, through Spotify, through iHeartRadio. Just search Red Pill News, Red Pill News, or Red Pill 78, all one word, and you guys will be able to find it. All right, you guys, I really appreciate it once again. Thank you to the mods for keeping the chat comfy. Thank you to everybody who participated in the show. Thank you to everybody who sent us articles and just stopped by to hang out with us. 3,600 people, 2,200 likes. I love you all, and I will see you tonight at 6 p.m. for another edition of Red Pill News. Good luck, and God bless.